All righty, today we're reading out of As Bill Sees It, the references to higher power, reliance on a higher power. And Michael's going to start us on 26.
True independence of the spirit, page 26. The more we become willing to depend upon a higher power, the more independent we actually are. Therefore, dependence at AA practices it is really a means of gaining true independence of the spirit. At the level of everyday living, it is startling to discover how dependent we really are and how unconscious of that dependence. Every modern house has electric wiring carrying power and light to its interior. By accepting with delight our dependence upon this marvel of science, we find ourselves personally more independent, more comfortable and secure. Power flows just where it is needed, silently and surely. Electricity, that strange energy so few people understand, meets our simplest daily needs. Though we readily accept this principle of healthy dependence in many of our temporal affairs, we often fiercely resist the identical principle when asked to apply it as a means of growth in the life of the Spirit. Clearly, we shall never know freedom under God until we try to seek His will for us. The choice is ours.
Okay. 33. Foundation for life. We discover that we receive guidance for our lives to just about the extent that we stop making demands upon God to give it to us on order and on our terms. In praying, we ask simply that throughout the day, God's place in us is the best understanding of His will that we can have for that day, and that we be given the grace by which we can carry it out. There's a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. 55. Seeking guidance.
Seeking guidance, page 55. Man is supposed to think and act. He wasn't made in God's image to be an automaton. My own formula along this line runs as follows. First, think through every situation, pro and con. Praying, meanwhile, that I be not influenced by ego considerations. Affirm that I would like to do God's will. And having turned the problem over in this fashion and getting no conclusive or compelling answer, I wait for further guidance, which may come into the mind directly or through other people or through circumstances. If I feel I can't wait and still get no definite indication, I repeat the first measure several times. Try to pick out the best course and then proceed to act. I know if I am wrong, the heavens won't fall. A lesson will be learned in any case.
Okay. 66. For emergencies only. Whether we had been believers or unbelievers, we began to get the idea that a higher power was a sort of Bush League pinch hitter to be called upon only in an emergency. The notion that we would still live our own lives, God helping a little now and then, began to evaporate. Many of us who had thought ourselves religious awoke to the limitations of this attitude. Refusing to place God first, we had deprived ourselves of His help. But now the words, "Of myself I am nothing, the Father doeth the works," begin to carry bright promise and meaning. 72.
Dependence, unhealthy or healthy. Page 72. Nothing can be more demoralizing than a clinging and abject dependence upon another human being. This often amounts to the demand for a degree of protection and love that no one could possibly satisfy. So our hoped-for protectors finally flee, and once more we are left alone, either to grow up or to disintegrate. We discovered the best possible source of emotional stability to be God himself. We found that dependence upon his perfect justice, forgiveness, and love was healthy, and that would work where nothing else would. If we really depended upon God, we couldn't very well play God to our fellows, nor would we feel the urge to rely wholly on human protection and care.
Okay, 78. Clearing a channel. During the day, we can pause where situations must be met and decisions made and renew the simple request, "Thy will, not mine, be done." If at these points our emotional disturbances happen to be great, we will more surely keep our balance provided we remember and repeat to ourselves a particular prayer or phrase that has appealed to us in our reading or meditation. Just saying it over and over will often enable us to clear a channel choked up with anger, fear, frustration, or misunderstanding, and permit us to return to the surest help of all, our search for God's will, not our own, in the moment of stress. 87.
Keystone of the Arch, page 87. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we became open-minded on spiritual matters. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. We had to quit playing God. It didn't work. We decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. We would be the principal. We, his agents. He would be the principal. We, his agents. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new triumphal arch through which we pass to freedom.
9.3. Atmosphere of grace. Those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support. As the body can fail in its purpose for lack of nourishment, so can the soul. We all need this light of God's reality, the nourishment of his strength, and the atmosphere of his grace. To an amazing extent, the facts of AA life confirm this ageless truth. 104.
Okay, right here. Our new employer. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed. If we kept close to him and performed his work well, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
117. The sense of belonging. Perhaps one of the greatest rewards of meditation and prayer is the sense of belonging that comes to us. We no longer live in a completely hostile world. We are no longer lost and frightened and purposelessness. The moment we catch even a glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see truth, justice, and love as the real and eternal things in life, we are no longer deeply disturbed by all the seeming evidence to the contrary that surrounds us in purely human affairs. We know that God lovingly watches over us. We know that when we turn to Him, all will be well with us here and hereafter. 122.
Willingness is the key, page 122. No matter how much one wishes to try, exactly how can he turn his own will and his own life over to the care of whatever God he thinks there is? A beginning, even the smallest, is all that is needed. Once we have placed the key of willingness in the lock and have the door ever so slightly open, we find that we can always open it some more. Though self-will may slam it shut again, as it frequently does, it will always respond the moment we again pick up the key of willingness.
129. The way of strength. We need not apologize to anyone for depending upon the Creator. We have good reason to disbelieve those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. For us, it's the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that men of faith seldom lack courage. They trust their God. So we never apologize for our belief in Him. Instead, we try to let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. 139.
Basis of all humility, page 139. For just so long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength and intelligence, for just that long was a working faith in a higher power impossible. This was true even when we believed that God existed. We could actually have earnest religious beliefs, which remained barriers because we were still trying to play God ourselves. As long as we placed self-reliance first, a genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question. The basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will, was missing.
155. Built by the one and the many. We give thanks to our Heavenly Father who, though so many friends and through so many means and channels, has allowed us to construct this wonderful edifice of the Spirit in which we are now dwelling. This cathedral, whose foundation already rests upon the corners of the earth. On its great floor, we have inscribed our 12 steps of recovery. On the side walls, the buttress of the AA traditions have been set in place to contain us in unity for as long as God may will it so. Eager hearts and hands have lifted the spire to our cathedral into its place. That spire bears the name of service. May it never point straight May it ever point straight upward toward God. It is only to the few that we owe the remarkable developments in our unity, in our ability to carry AA's message everywhere. It is to the many, indeed, it is the labors of all of us that we owe these prime blessings. 200.
Source of strength, page 200. When World War II broke out, our AA dependence on a higher power had its first major test. AAs entered the services and were scattered all over the world. Would they be able to take discipline, stand up under fire, and endure the monotony and misery of war? Would the kind of dependence they had learned in AA carry them through? Well, it did. They had even fewer alcoholic lapses or emotional binges than AA's safe at home did. They were just as capable of endurance and valor as any other soldiers, whether in Alaska or on the Salerno beachhead. Their dependence upon a higher power worked. Far from being a weakness, this dependence was their chief source of strength.
206. Praying for others. While praying sincerely, we may still fall into temptation. We form ideas as to what we think God's will is for other people. We say to ourselves, this one ought to be cured of this fatal malady, or that one ought to be relieved of his emotional pain. And we pray for these specific things. Such prayers, of course, are fundamentally good acts, but often they are based upon a supposition that we know God's will for the person for whom we pray. This means that side by side with an earnest prayer, there can be a certain amount of presumption and conceit in us. It is AA's experience, particularly in these cases, we ought to pray that God's will, whatever it is, be done for others as well as for ourselves. 210. Out of bondage.
Okay. 210, out of bondage. At step 3, many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that my transcendence over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready. Then we could commence to abandon ourselves utterly to him. I know it looks like they changed the prayer. I don't remember transcendence.
I was thinking, where does that word come from? Oh, well, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. So
221. God will not desert us. Word comes to me that you are making a magnificent stand in adversity. This adversity being the state of your health. It gives me a chance to express my gratitude for your recovery in AA, and especially for the demonstration of its principles you are now so inspiringly giving to us all. You will be glad to know that AAs have an almost unfailing record in this respect. This, I think, is because we are so aware that God will not desert us when the chips are down. Indeed, he did not when we were drinking, and so it should be with the remainder of life. Certainly, he does not plan to save us from all troubles and adversities, nor in the end does he save us from so-called death. Since this is but an opening of a door into a new life where we shall dwell among his many mansions. Touching these things, I know you have a most confident faith. 239. When and how to give.
How to give, page 239. Men who cry for money and shelter as a condition of their sobriety are on the wrong track. Yet we sometimes do provide a new prospect with these very things, when it becomes clear that he is willing to place his recovery first. It is not whether we shall give that is the question, but when and how to give. Whenever we put our work on a material plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon alms rather than upon a higher power in the AA group. He continues to insist that he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth, that job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking as long as we place material dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God.
Okay, 249. God's gifts. We see that the sun never sets upon AA's fellowship. More than 350,000 of us now have recovered from our malady, that we have everywhere begun to transcend the formidable barriers of race, creed, and nationality. This assurance that so many of us have been able to meet our responsibilities for sobriety and for growth and effectiveness in the troubled world where we live will surely fill us with the deepest joy and satisfaction. But as a people who have nearly always learned the hard way, we shall certainly not congratulate ourselves. We shall perceive these assets to be God's gift, which have been in part matched by an increased willingness on our part to find and do His will for us. 265.
No, 251, isn't it?
My bad.
Face the music.
Give me a moment. I skipped that one. 250. Face the music. Go ahead.
Don't be too discouraged about that slip. Practically always we drunks learn the hard way. Your idea of moving on to somewhere else may be good or it may not. Perhaps you have got into an emotional or economic jam that can't be handled where you are. But maybe you are doing just what all of us have done at one time or another. Maybe you are running away. Why don't you try to think that through again carefully? Are you really placing recovery first, or are you making it contingent upon other people, places, or circumstances? You may find it ever so much better to face the music right where you are now, and with the help of the AA program, win through. Before you make a decision, weigh it in these terms.
Okay.
That was a good reading. We didn't need to skip that one.
Wow, of all the ones to skip. Anyway. 265.
No, wait a minute. That wasn't one.
It doesn't matter, Michael. It doesn't matter.
Where did I get 251?
It doesn't.
Right,
we're fine. 265. Neither dependence nor self-sufficiency. When we insist like infants that people protect and care for us, or that the world owed us a living, then the result was unfortunate. The people we most loved often pushed us aside or perhaps deserted us entirely. Our disillusionment was hard to bear. We failed to see that, though adult in years, we were still behaving childishly, trying to turn everybody, friends, wives, husbands, even the world itself, into protective parents. We refused to learn that overdependence upon people is unsuccessful because all people are fallible, and even the best of them will sometimes let us down, especially when our demands for attention become unreasonable. We are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us to do and humbly rely upon Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. 293.
Rebellion or acceptance. All of us pass through times when we can pray only with the greatest exertion. Occasionally, we even go further than this. We are seized with a rebellion so sickening that we simply won't pray. When these things happen, we should not think too ill of ourselves. We should simply resume prayer as soon as we can, doing what we know to be good for us. A man who persists in prayer finds himself in possession of great gifts. When he has to deal with hard circumstances, he finds he can face them. He can accept himself and the world around him. He can do this because he now accepts a God who is all and who loves all. When he says, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," he deeply and humbly means it. When in good meditation and thus freed from the elements of the world, he knows that he is in God's hands, that his own ultimate destiny is really secure. Here and hereafter, come what may.
Okay, we go to 319. Two authorities. Many people wonder how AA can function under seeming anarchy. Other societies have to have law, enforce, and sanction and punishment administered by authorized people. Happily for us, we found that we need no human authority whatever. We have two authorities which are far more effective. One is benign, the other malign. There is God our Father, who simply says, "I am waiting for you to do my will." The other authority is named John Barleycorn, and he says, "You had better do God's will, or I will kill you." The AA traditions are neither rules, regulations, nor laws. We obey them willingly because we ought to and because we want to. Perhaps the secret of their power lies in the fact that these life-giving communication springs out of living experience and are rooted in love. 329.
Do it our way. In praying, our immediate temptation will be to ask for specific solutions to specific problems and for the ability to help other people as we have already thought they should be helped. In that case, we are asking God to do it our way. Therefore, we ought to consider each request carefully to see what its real merit is. Even so, when making specific requests, it will be well to add to each one of them this qualification: if it be thy will. Okay.